I know we all talk about TBR time being the best time of the month, but can we talk about how best of the year lists are the best time of the year? I love watching people talk about all of their favorite books. Just listening to them essentially like gush about what they loved this year is one of my favorite parts of BookTube. I look forward to this time of year every single year, and here it's your time to listen to me gush about my favorites of the year. I will be doing a top 10, and my top 10 is ranked from 10th to 1st. However, I do have 14 honorable mentions to round this out to my top 24 of 2024. However, the honorable mentions are not ranked. That felt like way too much work. And I will say that I think there is a 4-star that snuck into my top 10 list, even ahead of other 5 stars. And I think there's a 3-star in my honorable mentions. I really like to talk about my best of the year as in things that have really stuck with me, things that I know I'm going to be thinking about in the years to come. And my reading experience really plays a part in that. Sometimes how I read a book makes it even better. I think that that's seen in a couple of these. There's one that will stick in my brain forever. I'm not really going to discuss what honorable mentions are about at all. I'm just gonna kind of list them out. However, I will go into detail for my top 10. First honorable mention, we have The Ever King and The Ever Queen. This is a completed duology. I love this, a little pirate romance, a little bit Pirates of the Caribbean style, enemies to lovers. He's trying to kill her dad. Amazing. The Ever Queen was a 5-star for me as well. We have the Broken Bond series, the Bonds That Tie series. This is something that will stick in my brain forever. I binge read these in like a week. It's 6 books long, and I had so much fun with them. Are they peak literature? No, but are they incredible? And I'm going to be thinking about these characters for a long time. Yes. We have the Legends of Thesmar series. I will be thinking about Wilder Hawthorne for the rest of my life. He's one of my favorite book boyfriends. Even though I didn't objectively love this entire series, I think Wilder and Althea will really stick with me. I really liked their romance. I really liked who they were as characters, and I liked the world building in this. So overall, I really had a fun time. This is one of my favorite marathons that I did this year, finishing this entire series in 1 year. I really, really enjoyed it. We have The Patient, which was, I think, my first read of the entire year, which was a 5-star. So we really stuck the landing on this one. Hopefully we can do that again in 2025. This is just a short little horror novella, and I had a really fun time with it. Honestly, I think that this could have ended up on best of my year list, but sometimes the first reads of the year, like, kind of just like, they get pushed back because I have more like recent reads that, like, I have recency bias for sure. So this one just got pushed down by a couple other 5-stars that came later, but I really, really did enjoy this one. We have The Writing Retreat, which was a thriller I read in 72 hours in the reading nook. This was unhinged. I had such a good time. I remember reading it on sprints and just being like, please stop talking. Let's start sprinting. I would like to read. I really, really enjoyed this one for a fun, quick time thriller. Things have gotten worse than we last spoke. This is probably my most remembered moment of the year. I remember reading this. I remember recording myself. I also read this in 72 hours in the reading nook, and the reaction I had to this is something so prominent in my brain. This this book is something, and like scarred me for life, but I also kind of loved that it scarred me for life. I will never think of bugs and not think about this book. Incredible. You're in for it. Like, this makes you feel so uncomfortable, which is the point. Captive of Wolves by Eva Chase. This was a more recent book that I really, really had fun with, and I keep thinking about wanting to continue, so I think it deserved its place as honorable mention. It was a lot of fun, and I keep telling people to read it, so I really did enjoy this one. Dark Fae, which is my 3-star that snuck on here. This is a prequel to Zodiac Academy. The writing was not technically strong, which I think is why it's a little bit lower, but overall I remember these characters quite well, and I had fun, and I want to continue. And I just remember giggling so much while reading this. I remember sending my Discord little quotes from the book of the most unhinged things that were being said, and I just like had a really fun time reading this one, and it is a book that I'll be thinking about. Demon by Rob J. Hayes. This is a short novella, and it is a series. There is more books coming out after it in the next year. This one, cannibalism in a fantasy book. There are scenes in this that I will always think about. I remember feeling disturbed and uncomfortable and absolutely loving it, and just like literally gagging. I remember gagging while reading this, and not everyone wants to feel that way, but I want to feel that way. I love when a book can bring an actual like emotion out of me, like something so big that I have to express it. Like if I actually laugh out loud, or like I gag, or like I'm squealing or crying, like any emotional moment that is more than just me sitting there reading a book and thinking that emotion, when I actually feel it. I love that. I think that really brings out the favorite of the year. Servant of Earth is a more recent book that I just really had a really fun time with. I really liked the trials. I've been thinking about the trials. I would love to continue this, and so I think that it was overall really well done, and I had a lot of fun while reading it. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I buddy read with one of my in real life besties, and we both were just like texting each other with our thoughts, what we thought was going down, what our predictions were, who we thought did it, and I just remember that so clearly, and I really enjoyed my time with this. I was not expecting to really enjoy this book, so I think it was such a surprising 4-star that I keep thinking about it. I really need to continue on in this series, and I need to watch the TV show. ago, but I had so much fun reading this one. The Bloodstones by Tori Tekken. I did not read a lot of epic fantasy this year, but I do think I read some pretty strong ones, and The Bloodstones was one of those. I really, really enjoyed this one. I read it during Ramathon. It was my first read of Ramathon, so I do think that it has some like love just for that, because I read it on the first like opening sprints and things like that. But I do think that like I really enjoyed what was created in this. I'm really excited to see where this world continues, and I think it's really well fleshed out. So I overall have very strong opinions on this one. And then A Crown of Oaths and Curses, which was also a 5-star read for me this year. I think that this one has a little bit of recency bias, which is why I didn't make it, but also there was controversy involving the second book and the release and the editing of the second book, and I haven't continued in the series yet because of that. And I think it made my opinions on this book a little bit murky, which I try not to do, but sometimes you just can't help it. And so although I still loved this book, I loved the story in this, the true enemies to lovers, the discussion on hatred and how we had to overcome so many prejudices in the characters, and I really liked the world building, and I do want to continue the series. I'm just a little hesitant, but I still really, really loved this one, and I wanted to give it a shout out even though I didn't make it into my top 10. J. Bree having 2 honorable mentions on this list though is pretty impressive, I think. Top 10 time. 10th place, we have The Oathsworn Legacy, which was my SBFBO pick this year. I read it and loved it. I gave this 5 stars. I cried. As I said, something giving me such prominent emotion outwardly makes it a favorite of mine, and I bawled my eyes out multiple times in this story, like bawled. Not even just like a little bit of tearing up, like I was sobbing. I really, really felt emotionally invested into this story. I liked the stakes that were in this story. It starts out pretty monster of the week, and these 2 brothers are just going and hunting down these monsters for villages and getting the bounty. However, as the story increases, you see them wanting to save the world, and there is a conspiracy happening, and they want to take that down, and so they build a school where they train other people to help them on this mission. And the found family aspect that really comes in here is incredible, but also the sibling story at the core of this. I really thought that the way this was written was interesting. It's told in short stories almost instead of chapters, and I thought that worked really well for me. It kept the story feeling new and inviting, and there was time jumps and stuff like that, but it always felt very natural because of the storytelling aspect of this story. I really felt for the characters. If anything, it was just the brotherly bond. Like the last scene of this book sticks in my head so much. Like I loved the brotherly bond in this story, and I'm a sucker for a sibling story. What can I say? In number 9 spot, we have a novella. I think I found a love of shorter books this year, which I think is fun, which is This Is Where We Talk Things Out by Caitlin Marceau. This is a just short story novella about our main character who is estranged from her mother. She doesn't have the best relationship with her mother, but her mother wants to go to a cabin to help fix their relationship. She doesn't really believe this is going to happen, and as she gets to this cabin in the middle of the woods, strange things are happening. Her mother isn't acting 100% sane, and we have to be with her as she figures out what's going on and tries to fix her relationship with her mother. There's a lot of conversations about trauma in this and gaslighting, and I just think it was so well done, especially in such a short story. I find it really impressive when something like this can really impact me the way it did. So chef's kiss to this, and chef's kiss to Lexi, Books with Lexi, for recommending this one to me. I think every single horror that I loved this year, or thriller, Lexi did recommend to me. And in 8th spot, we have The Cruel Prince. I obviously read this for the first time, and I was truly missing out. I don't know what I did with myself. I read this so quickly. I stayed up all night. I really enjoyed, again, the characters. I truly think I talk about myself not being a character reader because I can't just read stories that are just purely about the characters, but characters definitely are a strong reason for me to enjoy a story when I really connect to them. I just also need plot because I get bored if we're just like following a character around. But in this one, we're following our main character, Jude, who her parents were murdered by her half-sister's father, and then that father adopts all of them and takes them to the fairy world. However, humans aren't treated very well in this, but they are given status, and so we watch Jude struggle to fit in because she's not fairy enough for the fairies and she's not human enough for the humans, and what that means, and she's going to prove that she is just as good as all the fairies over and over and over again. I was expecting this to be a little more romantasy than it was, but overall I just had a really fun time with this one. I ate it up. I really liked the world building. I thought the writing was really good and strong, and I really enjoyed the characters. Related very hard to Jude, so I loved this one. A 4-star that has made it very, very high on this list, considering it has beaten a couple 5 stars for this part, is Heartless Hunter. I debated giving this 5 stars. If you go back and watch the vlog where I read this, which I think was also in 72 hours in the reading nook, I had a really good, or was this for Realmathon's 48 hour? Maybe it's Realmathon's 48 hour. Apparently I need to bring back when I'm just sitting and reading a bunch of books because I tend to read pretty strongly in those, I guess. This is a story about a witch who is trying to hide the fact that she's a witch because the witches are being hunted. They used to be in power, but now they're not. And she kind of breaks into society because she outs her grandmother for being a witch so they don't think she's a witch, and she tries to save all the witches. She's essentially a witch vigilante in this, but she gets really close to the captain of the guard, the captain of the witch hunters, in in order to figure out where they're keeping all the witches before they are killed. And the banter in this was really good. The vibes in this, I've really thought about this one quite a bit. I really did enjoy it. I can't wait for the sequel to this that completes the duology. It's very much a cat and mouse game, and I have scenes in this that I really think about. There's a scene with like the measurements that I think about, and then the ending scene, and I just like overall thought that this was really, really well done, specifically for a YA romantasy as well. The tension was so good. Definitely pick this one up. In number 6 spot, we have a horror thriller. It kind of is a blend of both. It is a horror because of the darkness and a thriller because of the pacing, I find. But we have The Stowaway, which was just such a fun time, unhinged read for me. This was another recommendation from Lexi, and I had such a amazing time with this one. I just remember just being on the edge of my seat the entire time, wanting to flip the page. Essentially, The Stowaway follows our main character who was on a jury to put someone in jail. However, she isn't 100% sure she can put him in jail, and the guy gets out with one vote. She's on a cruise a bunch of years later. There is a copycat of the murderer that she was on the jury for, but is it a copycat? Is it the real murder? And she ends up having to help the cruise security figure out who it is because she has more intimate details since she was on that jury and was told a lot more things than the general public. This one just was so intense. I just remember being stressed. And there's some scenes in this, an ice cream scene, and a basketball court that I also really think about quite a bit. I really just think that this book stuck with me over the year, and I just loved it. I had so much fun with it. Another romantasy on my list is Slaying the Shadow Prince. This is a standalone in the Legend of Thesmar series, so I showed you Blood and Steel earlier. I think the standalone is the best book of the series. I loved Talamir Starling so much, and I love Drew even more. This is a prequel, essentially, but can definitely be read without reading Blood and Steel. I read this one first, actually, and I'm so glad I did. We're following Drew Emerson, whose entire family, besides her father, were murdered by Shadow Rays, and so she says she is going to get revenge and kill all Shadow Rays. Enter Talamir Starling, who is a warrior of the realm. This is essentially like a elite soldier that has like magical abilities. They're like gifted super strength and stuff, and they've passed a lot of tests, and they're like kind of looked upon very as like heroes of the realm, who has a secret that he is half Shadow Wraith, and him and Drew team up to go on a mission. But what's going to happen when Drew finds out about Talamir's secret? Is she going to murder him? There is a few scenes that I think about in this. There is a quote in this that I really think about like seeing color in a world of black and white, and I just think this was very beautiful writing, and the tension was so good, and I really, really also enjoyed the plot of this. I thought the storyline was well, the characters were well done. For a standalone to impact me so much really says something about this story, I think, and I loved this, and I need more people to read it, because I think a lot of people read Blood and Steel, and I think they're really missing out if you don't read this one. This one is incredible. It is the best book of the series, 100%. Next up, we have an entire series. We have the Bonded by Thorns series. Technically, my favorite of the series is Broken by Daylight. I do think the books get better and better each time. I technically only gave Bonded by Thorns a 3-star, and then I gave a 4-star, and then 2 5-stars. However, the series as a whole has just really, really stuck with me, and I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. I love how different all the men feel in this story. They all have very big personalities. It is a why choose romance, which means the female doesn't choose one man. She chooses to be with them all. It's also a Beauty and the Beast retelling in this first book, but as the story went on, I think it really went away from the Beauty and the Beast vibes, and we really just see our characters have a lot of personality. Like, the men are so distinct in my brain of who is who, and we spend an equal amount of time with all of them, which I think is really good. We get a lot of personality from them, and we also have this really grand epic plot that's happening. You don't see it a lot in this first book, but I promise as the series moves on, you definitely see all of this plot. And I stayed up reading these like back to back. I had the audiobooks of 1, 2, and 3. I don't even know when one book starts and the next one stops. And the only reason I can tell the last book really is because I read that one physically, because the audiobook was not out yet, but it is out now. And I truly could not stop reading these. I was staying up all night reading them, squealing, texting my friends, all of these amazing lines, hating characters. Like, I wanted to throw the book sometimes, throw it at these characters and knock some sense into them. This was incredible, amazing. I love, love, love these characters, and I'm dying for the next book, like dying for book 5. I know it's gonna rip my heart out. Like, book 3 was hard, book 4 was hard. I'm going to be emotionally devastated after book 5, because I was emotionally devastated after reading all 4 of these. So I definitely need more people to read these. If you've never picked up Why Choose, I wouldn't be scared of it. I think you should try it. It's pretty good. I also love that this is a little bit more poly than a lot of Why Choose. The men also get together. Also, I do think my tier ranking has changed since I've stopped, because I can't stop thinking about Dayton. Like, little poor Day has like stuck in my head so much. I think he might be beating Kel, but Cass is forever first. The next one is also an entire series that I marathoned this year, besides the last book, because that's not out yet, which is the Kindred's Curse saga. I think you're gonna see these on a lot of people's lists. There's a reason, because these were so good. However, I would like to tell you, I almost hated Spark of the Everflame. I almost gave this book 2 stars. The ending really really push it to a 3 because I just saw potential, but the characters annoyed the hell out of me. DM was so annoying in this book. I don't know what happened from this book to this book, but this was almost a 2, and these 2 books were 5 stars and have cemented this as a favorite because I love Luther now so much, and I also really like DM. I'm gonna hold up Glow because I think that it's my favorite. Heat is a little bit too long in my opinion, but I'm gonna hold up Glow. The world building in this was very unique. We're following our main character who has been told all of her life to stay away from the Descendant and the castles. However, her mom is a healer for the Descendants. The Descendants are children of the gods, that the gods came down and they fell in love with humans, and they tied their lives to the humans. So when the humans died, the gods also died, but they left Descendants children in their wake. But the children have kind of became a little bit too powerful. They think they're better than the humans now, and they kind of distance themselves. However, magic can't heal everything, and they always need a healer, so her mom is a healer for the Descendants. However, when her mom goes missing, DM is sure she's going to figure out what happened, and the best way to do that is to also go to the castle and take over her mother's place. There she meets Luther. Honestly, Luther and DM have like no scenes in Spark of the Everflame, but when you get to Glow, you'll love Luther so much. Luther is the heir to the throne, essentially. He is, the way the magic passes in this is so cool. The crown passes to the next descendant who is the most powerful. The crown just like knows who has the most power. So Luther is said to be the next king when the king dies, and the king is not doing so well. I want to reread this now. Just talking about it makes me want to reread it because I want to experience what I experienced again. I thought the world was so cool. There's like different magic in different territories and different rulers of each territory, and there's like alliances and non-alliances, and there's like these griffin dragon-like things. They're like a monster, essentially like a Frankenstein of all of these mythical creatures that I really, really loved, and I really need to read this. There's also found family in this. There's also real like blood family as well. This was so good. There's a reason you're gonna see this on everyone's list. However, I just need to say that if you didn't love Spark, like please continue. I'm not one to normally say to push through a book, but I do think it was worth it in the end. I truly love this series so much, and I'm so glad I didn't stop because I was very close to stopping after Spark of the Everflame. Another book I think you're gonna see everywhere this year is Quicksilver, which is in 2nd place. What's there not to love in Quicksilver? There's a grumpy, brooding shadow daddy in this. There is a bargain that's made, so our main character has to help our grumpy, brooding shadow daddy in order to earn her freedom, and it's done really well. There's like good tension, there's good banter, and there's such an epic plot in this. I think what really stuck out for me in this story is the epic plot. I actually think the romance was probably my least favorite part. I still enjoyed it, but it wasn't as well fleshed out as I think some of the other romantasies I've read are, but the plot in this was so epic in scale. The world building was done really well. I was constantly wanting to turn the page and read what was happening next. There is a character in this that I love in my whole heart, and Ramathon this year might be named after him. He is the namesake. The thing that I think about in this book is like the ending. There's like the labyrinth and the spider thing, and I just like really, really, really enjoyed where this story took me, and I'm very excited for the next installment in it. I mean, yes, I love Fisher as well. Like, what's not to love? But I liked the world building. I liked the way that the magic like talked to her, that there was a lot of reasoning to things. I really, really did enjoy this one quite a bit, and there's a reason everyone will be talking about it. Really, truly, it deserves 2nd spot on my list. I had such a fun time reading this. I hope more people love it because everyone is obviously loving it. And in 1st spot, can you guess what it is? I'm sure you can at this point because I screamed about this book so many times. It's a series again, which is the Order and Chaos series, which starts with House of Bane and Blood. City of Mirth and Malice I think is even better than House of Bane and Blood, but I'm gonna hold up House of Bane and Blood since it's the 1st book. This is a steampunk romantasy. We have an arranged marriage, so essentially our main character Camilla is part of a family. On one side, they are in the story non-magical users, and there is a war between the non-magical users and the people that have magic, which are called revenants. Essentially, our main character is in a pretty rich family. She owns the train company, and the train is how they get stuff across this like river that is in the middle of their city that separates the two sides of revenants and non-magic users. Her brothers have put her into debt, and in order to get the family out of debt, it all lands on her shoulders. She's set for an arranged marriage with another powerful family for essentially money. They're selling her, essentially. She doesn't want to do this, but she also doesn't want to let her siblings down. But instead of marrying the person that they arrange, which is one of the other families that is non-magic users, she makes a deal with one of the ruling revenant families, and she marries him. And when she makes this deal, she realizes that not all is as it seems. There is prejudice against the revenant users that shouldn't be there, and that Nico, our revenant user, is incredible, amazing, and he knows how to use his metal hand quite well. I loved the banter in this, the chemistry in this, but also the story and the plot. I loved that this felt, once the two get together, I really think that this story feels like them against the world, and the plot isn't about tearing them apart from each other in terms of their relationship. There is things that separate them at times, but it's never because they don't love each other anymore. There's no like miscommunication to that aspect, I feel like. The plot is really them fighting against the big bads in the city and this conspiracy that's happening, and I really, really enjoyed that. I dislike stories when it's just like, oh, we see them get together and then they break up, and then they get back together and then they break up. So I'm really looking for more stories like this where like the plot and the overall like conflict of the story is not their relationship. The relationship adds to the story but isn't like really the main reasoning behind everything that's going on. I love Nico. I love Nico with all my whole heart. I think he is the best book boyfriend. I thought Luther was going to be my top of the year, but Nico really truly goes above and beyond at all times. The writing in this, the prose is so good. There's so many quotes. Actually, a couple people were buddy reading it in Mel's Patreon. I was just like reading what they were saying and I forgot how readable, how like lovely the writing is, how quotable it is, the chemistry that these two had. I need to reread this one too because this is so good. It's like Peaky Blinders but romantasy. Please read this. This is so good. If you're gonna read anything off my list, I would probably recommend this. Also Quicksilver, also Spark the Everflame, also the entire list. I don't know, just, you know what, just read all of them. Read all my favorites. It's a good idea, right? I truly think this deserves first spot on my list. I will be thinking about this for the rest of my life. This is pretty top tier. The only romantasy I think that I like better than this is Serpent and the Wings of Night. I think Serpent has better banter in it, but this has better chemistry in it. But like Serpent, top tier, this right under it. Like this is just as good, if not almost better. Almost. It's not better, but almost. It could almost get there. So yeah, please read this. I'll actually leave the vlog that I read this so that you can see my thoughts in like real time on the screen for you to go check out. I was screaming. Like I was loving this. If you need more convincing to read my favorite of the year. I would also love to know what your favorite of the year is down below in the comments because I always think that's fun to creep on what people loved this year. You don't have to pick one, just give me a few. But if you feel like picking one, you can pick one. If you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you're here, leave me some sort of train emoji and have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.